Tonight, Question Time has rolled into the West Yorkshire city of Bradford. Known as the wool capital of the world in the 19th century, it's now one of the UK's most diverse cities where 150 languages are spoken. Well over 1 million visitors have been drawn here during its tenure this year as UK City of Culture. As usual, our audience members arriving here this evening reflect the general political picture across the nation. And tonight they want to ask, where should we be housing asylum seekers? Will we be paying higher taxes in next month's budget? And who is going to lose out in any welfare cuts? Welcome to Question Time from Bradford. On tonight's panel, the Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy, who's taken on some of the country's biggest institutions, including the BBC. Making her Question Time debut, Harriet Cross, the Conservative MP for Gordon and Buchan in Aberdeenshire, who was born just down the road from here in Harrogate. Matt Goodwin is a former academic who's written about immigration and the rise of the radical right. He supports Reform UK and presents a show on GB News. Faiza Shaheen is an author and economist who once stood as a Labour candidate, then as an independent after being deselected. She now campaigns for higher taxes for the super rich. Good evening. Welcome to our panellists. Welcome to our audience here in Bradford. Very nice to see you. Thank you for coming along this evening. And, of course, welcome to you at home. Thank you for watching the programme. You can join in the conversation on social media, or you can just sit back and see what happens here. Whatever you choose. Right, let's take our first question, which is from Danish Mahmood.
Good evening, panel. Where should we house asylum seekers?
Right, well, the government planned to house asylum seekers in 2 military sites. That's the new plan, one in Inverness and one in East Sussex. Lisa.
Well, I come from a town where we were some of the earliest places to get asylum hotels under the last government, and it has been an absolute disaster. We've had people, very vulnerable people in our who've been put there with no notice to the local community, to the police, to the members of parliament, to the council. We've had far-right racists outside protesting. We've had a media circus come to town when people are trying to go about their daily lives. And we've had people being locked into their hotel rooms and confined to their rooms for many, many hours at a time. And left there for a really long time with no real hope of getting a decision on their asylum claim and either being able to move on with their lives, work, contribute to the UK, or being removed from the UK if they've got no right to be here. So
what makes you think it's going to be any different with these barracks? I mean, Labour was very critical about the Conservatives when they put people in army barracks. And the barracks in Inverness, for example, it's right in the middle of the city.
Well, look,
so how is that different from being a hotel in the middle of the city?
The point that I was trying to make was that, first of all, we need to learn from the mess and the chaos that has been created. And the biggest lesson of all to take from that is, why did we have an explosion in the number of asylum hotels in the country? Why did we have all this strife and division in communities? It's because the last government effectively gave up on processing asylum claims. So you've got people languishing for years who could contribute to our country, and you've got all this chaos going on in communities. The single biggest thing that we've done that will make a difference to that is to process asylum claims again. We've doubled the rate at which those decisions are being made, and to bring some coherence to that system where we were spending millions of pounds a day on asylum hotels at the height of the last government.
But you're going to be spending millions of pounds on these barracks?
No, instead you utilise government buildings, you make sure that you can house people decently and treat people with decency, because we're a warm, decent country. You process those claims quickly, and then those people who can stay and contribute get the chance to do so, and those people who can't are returned. It seems to me we just need to bring a bit of common sense back to what has been one hell of a mess over the last 15 years.
Matt.
Well, it's always interesting listening to a Labour politician talk about common sense, because that is the opposite of what is happening in this country right now. Everybody who's looking at the absolute shambles of the borders, everybody in this country is paying £15 billion to accommodate people who are often breaking our laws. These islands are known for having a sense of fairness. We created the idea of fair play. That is not what is happening in this country. We have governments, both Tory and Labour, which are incentivising people to break our laws, enter our country illegally, and, to be frank, putting women, children, our people at risk. That's what we've seen for much of the last week. From Walsall, Rhiannon White, the young mother stabbed in the head 20 times by an illegal migrant from Sudan. That's what we've seen in places like Uxbridge. That's what we've seen in places like Bournemouth. This is a complete shambles. We need to put the British people first, take control of our borders, leave the European Convention on Human Rights, repeal Tony Blair's Human Rights Act, and detain and deport anybody who arrives illegally.
Man here at the front in the grey shirt.
So the government clearly needs to get a better handle on illegal migration, but people who've arrived in small boats so far this year is 37,000. There are over 4 million kids in child poverty in the UK, and there are 4.5 million people who can't get a dentist appointment. We spend 90% of the political capital and discourse and media focus discussing 37,000 people. How much more could we achieve if we put that effort into 4.5 million?
Man here in the check shirt.
By far right, does the lady, I don't mean to attack you or anything,
No, sure.
do you mean the general
Lisa.
public? That's my main concern. Because you are labelling ordinary old ladies, old gentlemen, everybody as far right. It's trying to villainise people who are, quite frankly, terrified.
Yeah.
You've got hotels, all-you-can-eat buffets. It does not matter, I'm not attacking. Everybody deserves a roof and to eat. And that is a British citizen, that's as a Yorkshire bloke,
Yeah.
we look after each other.
Yeah.
As neighbours, everything. And we do. We've welcomed everybody into this country, and it's made Britain great. But when you are villainising these words by saying that we are far right and things, and coming from Labour, I grew up very much Labour, and I'm struggling to support Labour anymore.
All right, well, let's let her answer.
I'm going off
Lisa,
subject
do you want to...
now.
No.
No, you're not at all. And you make an important point because there's an important distinction here. By far right people protesting about those asylum hotels, you know who I meant? I meant the people who travelled to our town with swastika banners and stood outside the hotels, creating such havoc that in the end, the only threat that the police assessed that there was in the town was the threat from those people to the hotel staff and the asylum seekers. That's what I meant. I don't mean people who live in my town, including me. I bring my family up there. This is my town. This is my family, my friends, my community, who were absolutely incensed by the chaos that we were seeing around us and the fact that the company who placed those asylum seekers in the hotel did so with no regard to their safety and no respect for the community that they were placing them in either. I think that's disgraceful. That's why we're taking action to close those hotels and find a much more suitable solution.
I mean, there are people in Inverness saying Labour's not giving them any respect either because they don't want people in those barracks, but I'm just pointing that out. Yes, Faiza.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to, I guess, there's no doubt that there is absolute chaos in what our asylum system looks like right now. I mean, whether you look at how slow it's been to process the applications or where people are living and what's happened in some of those communities. But I really want to pull you up, Matt, on this point about saying they're often breaking laws. There are, of course, some people that are doing things that are deplorable and wrong and they need to be deported and put in jail and the rest of it. But those are the minority. And I really want to highlight this because I, at Christmas, was invited by this refugee charity local to me in East London and was asked to judge a competition that children were doing. And honestly, these families, some of them had come through irregular routes. They want the same things as us. They want the same things as us. They want their kids to do well in school. They're coming from places like Iraq and Afghanistan, which most of us here have memories long enough to understand that we have a role in why those countries are in a bad way. From Sudan, where there's absolute atrocious things happening on the ground and we don't talk enough about. And UAE is one of the countries involved there, and we sell them arms. So again, this has something to do with us. And we should absolutely just push away this idea that somehow we should be scared of all asylum seekers, because many of them are just normal people trying to escape very horrible, difficult situations and just build a good life for their family.
Just briefly.
No, you said they're up to
there's a group of people that really haven't been mentioned so far, which is the British people. When did it become acceptable to impose an extreme policy of open borders, unvetted illegal migrants coming into the country, nearly 200,000? On the current trends, by the next general election, on the current trends, we will have another 181,000 illegal migrants coming into this country over the next few years. You say they don't commit crime, violence, etc. What do you say to the family of Rhiannon White, the young mother who was murdered by a man from Sudan? What do you say to the family of the 8-year-old in Lambeth who was raped by an asylum seeker? Or the 12-year-old in Nuneaton who was raped by an asylum seeker? Or the 10-year-old in Stockport? But this is the narrative that we have. And if we talk about it, we're far right. If we talk about it, we're racist. And by the way, Lisa, your leader, Keir Starmer, just stood at Labour Party conference and said, if you are voting for the Reform Party, if you want to change this country, you're far right, you're Nazi, you're fascist. No, that's what he said.
Sorry, well, OK, well, you've said what you think. Now, let me tell you what actually happened. See, the thing is, Matt, that I grew up in Manchester in the 1980s. My dad came to this country from India, and we were, and remain, a proud, diverse city that has been strengthened by waves of immigration.
I lived in Manchester, yeah.
And I just say to you, I've seen this playbook before. I agree absolutely with Pfizer that the cases that you mentioned are absolutely appalling, horrific, disgraceful, and that's why in one of the cases that you meant that isn't a live court case police investigation at the moment, we took swift action and we removed the guy from the country. But let me just say this to you. I've seen this before. When I was growing up in Manchester, my dad used to debate with Enoch Powell, and we heard the way in which people tried to tar every single person who didn't look like them or sound like them or come from the same place with them as somehow a threat. What you're doing is trying to create fear and distrust and division, because that's the only way that you and your friends can thrive. You have no answers to the very many challenges.
I'm not just going to sit here and be compared to Enoch Powell.
Let me finish.
Matt, wait one second. Both of you, just wait 1 second. If you talk at the same time, no one can hear anything. Plus, I want to make sure other people speak as well. So very briefly, I appreciate the passion you're speaking with. Finish your point, and then very briefly, Matt, respond.
It's the only playbook you've got, because you've got no real answers to the challenges this country faces, including that list you just read out. The question would be, how are you going to do any of those things? You don't know, you've never answered the question, and so you create fear and distrust and chaos, because that is the only way that you can gain support.
We used to be a country that respected people who played by the rules, and those people in Manchester played by the rules. It's not about race, it's not about ethnicity. What's happening now is we have governments that are incentivising people to break the rule of law, to violate our sense of fairness, and you are the people who are paying for that. 15 billion
well, let's hear from some of them,
is how much you're paying for that.
There's lots of hands up, and I want to hear from some of them. So, man in the grey sweatshirt there, yes.
Matt, you talked about narrative and mentioned the families of victims of some horrific crimes, but a few weeks ago in our country, a Sikh woman was raped on her way to work by 2 white men who told her to go back to her country. What would you say to the victim of that family and the motivation behind that attack? Do British people... Do white British people not also commit these violent crimes?
Absolutely.
And is your narrative not that these crimes are only committed by asylum seekers and refugees?
Okay.
Very briefly. I'm interested in evidence. The freedom of information requests that have been submitted, because the government won't give you this data.
Okay, you're not actually answering his question, Matt. You're saying, Fiona, what would you say to the family of that woman?
Misinformation, but they won't give you the information about what's going on in the country.
Okay.
The freedom of information requests show...
Matt, you're not answering his question.
I am. If you let me speak, Fiona,
so that Matt
the freedom of information requests show...
Who was raped by two men
Exactly
who told her to go back to her
exactly
own
the same
country.
thing that I would say to the families of the grooming gang victims. It's horrific and they deserve justice.
So why,
All
didn't,
right.
why didn't you bring it up when you brought up all the victims of crimes by asylum seekers?
Matt, I'm going to take it away from you. Harriet?
About narrative, and that is your narrative.
I hear your point. Harriet, you've been sitting here very quietly.
And probably quietly is quite a good word, because one of the reasons why the issue of immigration in the country, asylum hotels in the country, has become so toxic is because people do not listen. They do not recognise that this is in a really difficult, vital, but difficult area which governments have to solve. But because there is so much heat in the argument, because there's so much point scoring in the argument, it's so difficult for anyone to get out of the position that they've got themselves into. Yes.
And do you think the Conservatives are not point scoring on this argument at the moment?
I think that we have actually, in the last 14 months, we have looked at what we did, look at what can be done, and come up with better solutions as to what can be done in the future. And yes, okay.
i.e. they were bad solutions while you were in power.
No, not necessarily. I don't think that at all. We were
how did we get here,
we were dealing with a situation that was evolving. We were dealing with a situation where, for example, we suggested using barracks. Labour didn't support that. They do now because they've realised the reality of being in government. Reform will realise the reality if they were to come to government as well. But this is much harder than just a headline, much harder than just trying to set a solution that will get a bit of reaction from the public. And we cannot do this by point scoring. We cannot do this by pitching one against the other, because it has to be a solution where communities feel like they're being listened to, the British public feel like they're being listened to, that healthcare and services which are there to support the British public but are also going to be used by those using the migrant hotels are being used and actually able to support those who need them, with British people at the front of the queue, because that's what is needed too.
And do you think that the Conservative
government
government shares any of the responsibility for the fact that we are in the situation we're in now?
Immigration in the last few years exploded around the world, absolutely. And
no,
yes,
I'm asking about the Conservative government.
And yes, we were not immune to that. We absolutely were not immune to that. We recognise that completely. We did see immigration increase while we were in government. We've seen it increase again this year. Small boat arrivals are already higher this year than they have been in the previous year as well. This is not a one government issue. This is not a 1 or 2 year issue. But it is an issue that we do need to solve. And it's not an issue we will solve by shouting at each other or point scoring against each other.
The man in the front in the blue.
Hiya. Lisa, on your opening statement, you mentioned about the hardship and the fear that the illegal immigrants in this country are facing while they're staying in very expensive hotels. Okay. What about the British people who were in hardship? What about pensioners who were struggling to heat a small house last Christmas? They're in a really, really good place. They're in a safe environment. They've got security teams. The people outside are all being accused of being racist. Are they racist, or are they just scared? And the broke, we're broken, absolutely broken. There's talk of everything's a rise. Everything's a rise. Nothing ever goes down, and all they do is, if you don't like it, you deflect it with words to make us look in the wrong. And it's wrong. It's very wrong.
Lisa, I'm going to come back to you. I'm just saying a couple more points in the audience, and then we'll allow you to answer. Yes, woman in the glasses there in the front.
Do you not think that we should be more considerate of why they're coming here, and we should do more things to make sure that they're safe in where they come from, so we don't have that problem after all? So, yeah.
Okay. The woman, you can see the woman in the third row there, yes.
Do you not think it was the previous 14 years of government that's caused all this frustration and because then that's allowed these boats to come in all these years? It's not just the last 14 months that's caused this, but yet it's all been put on the Labour government, and why it's their fault all of a sudden.
I'm pretty certain that's not what I said. I completely reflected on the fact that it has been an issue for many years, for many governments, for many countries. I absolutely recognise that completely. But things have not got better since Labour came in, despite them saying that they would smash the gangs, that it would all go away, it would stop, they would close the hotels. None of this has happened, because this is a lot more difficult situation in reality to deal with than they were ever led the public on to believe.
All right. Lisa, do you want to answer
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I agree that you beware of solutions with cheap, easy solutions to complex problems.
What, like smash the gangs?
Normally aren't. Yeah, well, look, smash the gangs. Well, what
Stop
do you
the
do?
boats.
You start negotiating returns agreements with people and you, with other countries, and you implement those and you do the hard yards to actually make that work, because then you undermine that.
And what about the other day, the one who got returned to Ethiopia?
Well, I was just...
What do you do, just give them all 500 quid?
Well, I was going to answer your original question, but I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is exactly the point, because this guy comes to the UK, he's not allowed to be here, we return him to France for the first time, we've got an agreement where we can do that. Because part of that agreement means that we can capture biometric data, the minute that he turned back in the UK, we were able to detect that, and we've removed him again. And that is our message to people, that if you're wasting your money coming back and trying to come here illegally...
How many have been removed so far back to France?
OK, but let me just deal with your original question, because I think you did make a really, really important and fair point. People are really struggling in this country, and dealing with that means dealing with the poverty that we saw after, collapse of living standards over the last decade. It means dealing with pensioners who can't afford to heat their homes. It's why we're introducing free breakfast clubs. It's why we're extending free school meals. It's why we're cutting energy bills by giving people additional support to pay them. But look, let me tell you this as well, that people who are struggling are actually, in my town anyway, they're the people who are most generous to the asylum seekers that are arriving. They're turning up and supporting them, not standing outside with swastika banners.
I am going to move on because, A, I think we'll come to this topic again, I suspect, on further programmes. We've certainly done it reasonably often. And I want to try and fit in the other ones. So before I come, Daniel, prepare yourselves. I'm coming to you next. Before I do, just want to say we'll be in Sunderland next week. Week after that, we're in London. So if you want to come and put your questions to our panel, go to the Question Time website, follow the instructions there, and hopefully we will see you. Sunderland next week, London the week after. Daniel Marchegiani, where are you? Ah, you're over there. Off you go.
How worried should working people be about next month's budget?
Right. Lots of attention on that. So 3 months ago, the Prime Minister ruled out raising income tax, VAT or national insurance as part of their manifesto pledge. Yesterday, he was challenged on that, and he wouldn't rule out raising any of those. How worried should working people be, Harriet?
Very worried. Very, very worried. And with absolute reason. As Fiona just said, yesterday was the absolute evidence that we needed, but this is coming down the line. There will be tax rises in November. That is clear as day. It's been clear for a long time. I mean, last year's budget was a year ago today. This is the one-year anniversary of last year's budget, where the government raised £40 billion in taxes, £40 billion of more taxes on people, on businesses across the country. And the impact that that has had on our growth, on our economy, on the day-to-day lives of people in every part of the country, in every industry, in every part of their working lives has been awful. And this time round, they're going to need to raise more or less the same amount again. So what they did last time, where you assume they went for what they thought was the low-hanging fruit, which is worrying in itself, it's going to have to come again, and probably worse, because now they're going to have to dig deeper, dig harder into your pockets and actually get real money out of working people. And they might actually define working people as they mean this time, because last year they tried to trick us all by not thinking that people who ran businesses weren't working people, people who had jobs and therefore would have different job prospects, because, you're going to put £25 billion of NICS rises on businesses. These are working people, farmers, working people. Labour tried to mislead us all last year with what they were going to do with their tax rises. They will do it again this year, and they're already setting the ground for it. So we should all be very, very worried before the budget next month.
Faisal.
Well, I really hope that this Labour government focuses on taxing the very richest most. Working people, I wouldn't understand if they look to working people, because honestly, that would show a level of disconnection that would really surprise me. I mean, how many people are really struggling with it?
Who do you mean? But do you mean anyone who earns a salary, no matter how high?
Well, for most people, even on, under 100 grand, like, a lot of people are struggling to make ends meet. Like, my childcare bill is just under £1,000 a month. It's a lot of money. Some of us are still on those Liz Truss mortgages from the Conservatives, right? Like, our bills are so high, and people are earning money and looking at their bank account every month and thinking, this is just really difficult. Meanwhile, and this is really important, Billionaire wealth and millionaire wealth in this country is growing every week exponentially. Billionaire wealth in this country has gone up 1,000% since 1990. Since 2010, billionaire wealth has more than doubled. Meanwhile, in real terms, wages, median wages in this country have only gone up by £16 since 2010. Think about that, right? So they're getting hundreds and thousands a week on passive income, on assets. We're going out to work, out of our tax bill every month. We're seeing it go out of our pay slips. And I just started working for this tax justice organisation. Honestly, the number of loopholes that are created, for the richest, it feels like it's voluntary for them to pay. Now, we advocate for those over 10 million, how many in this room, right? Over 10 million of wealth, just a 2% charge a year over whatever they have over that. And I really hope that the government is taking these taxes on wealth far more seriously and moving away, taxing the everyday person that is really struggling right now. Okay.
Man in the check shirt with the glasses there, yes.
It's simple. If we want strong, good public services, then we have to pay for them. And that money has to come from somewhere. And a lot of people are struggling, and therefore it needs to be the people with the broadest shoulders that factor that in, and then we transform our public services that have just been cut to the bone by 15 years of Tory cutbacks.
Women in the front.
And when the mega wealthy leave the country, who bears the brunt then for the tax? Because they're more mobile than what we
Shall I
are.
answer that? I mean, just on that, that's a typical thing. It's done to fearmonger, to scare us all. Actually, they polled the very richest, and 85% of millionaires themselves said, actually, we should be taxed more.
How many
and when you look
millionaires
at
have
the
we got in this
when you
country?
look at the data of when they say people are leaving, actually, a new report that was come out, they found that those numbers were fraudulent, that those numbers were made up, that most people have their roots in this country. They send their kids to a particular school. They don't want to leave like that. That evidence is just not there to support that argument. And what I would say, for those people that are looking to leave, one, pay your taxes on the way out. We need a new exit tax. And secondly, be patriotic. We talk about caring about being British in this country, care about this country getting better. It's only going to get better if we do something about wealth inequality, if we do something about raising more funds to improve our public services.
Matt.
I mean, this is fantasy land. This country, if we turn it into the place that I'm hearing about, where we basically chase out wealth creators, job creators, entrepreneurs, while leaving the borders open and forcing the British people to pay for all of this, that's basically the end of our country. There is a reason why every European country that tried a wealth tax then came out and said this was the wrong move. What did they say in France after the wealth tax? What did they say in France?
Well,
they
Norway,
said,
Spain,
I'll give you the quote.
France is
they
trying
said
to bring it back
the poor
and put it at a higher
stayed
rate.
poor and the rich left. Wealth taxes have never, ever worked. Now, if you want to live in a society where the job creators, the entrepreneurs and so on, and they all leave, and they are leaving, we're losing more millionaires, billionaires than the vast majority of countries around the world. If you want to live in that kind of society where you have to pay even more of the tax burden, while we're exposed to this extreme experiment of open borders, mass migration, and then we keep millions of our own people on out-of-work welfare benefits, not giving them any sense of meaning or dignity in their lives. We've got 1 million young people in this country, not in education, not in employment, not in training, not in work. I never hear people talking about that.
More and do something about it.
But we do talk about it on this programme, Matt, I have to tell you.
The answer is we are heading for an iceberg in this country, OK? Debt out of control. We have no growth. We're not productive. We do not have a dynamic economy.
So should taxes be raised or not? What's the solution?
Taxes are going to go up massively, unfortunately, and they're going to keep going up until someone on this panel is real with the British people about our debt. We're spending £111 billion a year just servicing the interest on our country's credit card.
So can I ask you, Matt? I mean, can I ask you
what
clearly?
That means is dramatic
Matt, let me ask you. You're not here to represent reform.
No.
You are a reform supporter. Can I just ask you?
I'll vote for reform. Yeah.
If they were to raise taxes when they come in, would you support that? You said, unfortunately, you think taxes have to rise.
Because, again, I'm speaking in my personal capacity. What I would say is, because we are broke, UK PLC is broke. No one is really being real with people about the scale of that.
So do you think taxes would have to go up?
inevitably, whoever is in power. But over the longer term, you can fix that problem by doing the things that Reform are actually saying we should do.
But nonetheless, you think taxes would have to go up no matter who was in power? Okay.
Reform,
I hear what you're
welfare,
saying. All right, there's a woman...
Make cuts to public expenditure,
There's a woman
end mass immigration.
A woman in the middle with glasses, yes.
Yes, just taking up the point about an exit tax. We are the only country in the G7, apart from Italy, that doesn't charge an exit tax. Why is it that places like America, Australia, all our peer countries charge an exit tax on those people who make their money in this country and then decide, like Staronsky, the CEO of Revolut Bank, who's decided to take his money to the UAE, he's not taxed on the money he's made, but a cleaner is taxed quite heavily on her minimum wage that she produces. It makes no sense at all.
Okay. All right, thank you. Man there in the white top.
We're talking about the billionaires who are leaving, and I'll shed a tear if I've got time for them. But what about the average worker, the teachers, the doctors, who are leaving because they're getting a better deal in other countries?
Exactly.
How worried should working people be about next month's budget, Lisa? I mean, the Chancellor is giving some indications. We're looking at tax and spending, she said. Higher taxes on the wealthy would be part of the story. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Keir Starmer is now not ruling out raising taxes.
Yeah, so the question was, should we be scared, or how scared should we be? You shouldn't be scared, but we will be honest with you. And we, from the day that we took office and during the election campaign, we sought to be completely honest and transparent, both about what we would do as a government and what we wouldn't do. We said we would pull every lever at our disposal to make life easier for people. We said that we wanted to see people's living standards improve.
Also, you crucially, in regards to it, you said you wouldn't raise tax. So if you want to be open and transparent, are you going to stick to that?
We set out a number of taxes that we said we wouldn't raise, and in the first budget, the Chancellor stuck to that commitment and didn't raise them.
So can we expect that in her second budget?
Well,
then?
look, I mean, you've been around long enough, Fiona, to know that I'm the Culture Secretary sitting on a panel a month out for the budget.
I get that, but nonetheless, the Prime Minister absolutely ruled it out 3 months ago, and now he's not. I notice you're not either.
I'm trying to answer your question. I really genuinely am, because there are not just the people in this room, but there are millions of people sitting at home who are making real-world decisions on the basis of what.
But so it sounds like the answer is I don't know.
It's not just I don't know. It's we're having discussions at the moment about the fairest way to do what we promised to do at the general election. We said that we would start to get the economy growing again, and we've had some success with that. We've had the fastest growth in the G7. We've seen interest rates falling, but people are not feeling it in their pockets. So we've put money up to help people with their energy
coming back to is the question.
We've
not raising taxes.
We've raised wages faster in the first 10 months of a Labour government than 10
one
years
of the promises
previous.
was not to raise taxes.
At the budget next month, we will be seeking to make the fairest possible decisions to make life easier for people. But I want to be honest with you, and I think this goes back to something actually that Matt said that I do agree with, is that if you want some of these things, as the gentleman in the audience said, there has to be a way to pay for it. Now, I will promise you that we will always make sure that those with the broadest shoulders bear the greatest burden. That's what we've done over the last 15 months. But you take the 26 billion that we invested in the National Health Service last year, that took millions of people off waiting.
We're getting off the topic. What I think everyone's noticing, Lisa, is that you're not committing to not raising taxes on working people.
Can I just say, though, everybody else in Parliament, everybody else in Parliament opposed that in the way that we raise money for that investment. Harriet's just had a go at me here for it now. But what do you want? Do you want the NHS on its feet again? Do you want families off waiting lists? And if you do, suggest to us a fairer way to pay for it, and we'll always consider it. But we're getting no suggestions. With the exception of Pfizer, I appreciate, who's made some suggestions tonight. We're getting no suggestions.
We've got to be honest as well with people that when you're talking about this money that's going to be raised at this budget, it's actually just a backfill. It's not even for new spending. If you want to be, you need to be far more bolder in what you're going to do, because the economic system is not working for most people.
Well, look, I'll just say that, one of the policies that we introduced that was in our manifesto was equalising the VAT system, because at the moment state schools pay VAT and public schools don't.
All right.
That's not
But look, the question was, guys, the question was, how worried should working people be about next month's budget? And Daniel, you're clearly referring to raising taxes. And we've all noticed you are not committing to not raising taxes.
Well, I
You've
can't.
even
I mean, I can't
been
write
asked
a budget
repeatedly.
a month out
No,
from
sure, but the Prime
the
Minister
election
did commit to that earlier, and now he's not,
On
and neither
TV.
are you. Let's take another question from Ryan Armstrong. Where are you, Ryan? Can't see you. Oh, there you are. Hi.
Both Reform UK and the Conservatives want to cut benefits for people suffering with anxiety disorders. Is that sound public spending or completely unfair?
And Ryan, since you're asking this question, what's your perspective on it?
Personally, I think that there's a spectrum there, and I think that there needs to be some sensible decisions made by the right people. I think there's been a lot of narrative around empowering people who might not be medically trained in order to make those decisions. I do think that there should always be an aspiration for people to be in employment, but there needs to be, you know, sensible decisions made around that.
Well, just to kind of put things in context, since the pandemic, mental health conditions account for about half the rise in disability benefit claims. Reform are saying that they will stop people with less severe mental health conditions, such as anxiety, from claiming personal independence payments. The Conservatives say they would cut benefits to those with lower level mental health issues. What is a lower level mental health issue, Harriet?
A low-level mental health issue is something like low-level anxiety. It's something that many people experience day to day. Some days it'll be worse than others, some days it's not, but it's not prohibitive on a long-term basis of someone going out and getting a job, doing better for themselves by getting a job, actually fulfilling more at getting a job. It's noted and proven that sitting at home, where if you've got low-level anxiety, not working is not good for you, and it's not good for your long-term recovery, it's not good for your long-term prospects, and it's really not good either, therefore, for the country where we need people to get into work, we need people to be able to better themselves, and these people are not helped. They're really not helped by being given welfare in order to stay out of work. We need to help them get into work. We need to make work somewhere where people with anxiety or other sort of low-level mental health issues can feel like they can go and work and actually contribute, because contributing and feeling satisfaction from work is a really good way in order to actually help these sort of things. It really is. And the bill that we have for welfare cannot be sustained if we keep having people who would be better in work sat at home on welfare. It's just not possible.
Okay, that kind of support is expensive though. I mean, it's a good thing to do. The thing that I really noticed about this, because last time I was on, it was the Labour Party, unfortunately, that was trying to cut benefits for people on PIP as well. So why are we always going for the poorest and most vulnerable? Is this really the type of society we've become? Like, honestly, I'm not surprised that anxiety is up. If you look at the situation in society, if we think about the economy, if we think about how many young people are struggling to find a job and think about their futures, I'm not surprised that there's this issue of anxiety, and I think we need far more investment. It's not just about, you know, saying we're going to cut the welfare bill. That's just not going to work. You just have a lot of people that feel even more anxious.
Last year, Pfizer PIP claims for anxiety and depression were something like £3.4 billion. Yeah. Can we afford that?
Well, I mean, I think the point is, can we afford not to support people when they don't feel well? The point is that if you want them to get back to work, which many of them themselves want. I have a friend that got long COVID and ended up on PIP. She ended up having to work part-time because her anxiety got so bad and her long-term sickness. Obviously, she needs support. Her confidence is completely shot. Her anxiety levels are really high. She wants to work more hours. And that's the thing, at the heart of so much of this is the sense that like people are somehow cheating the system. They're
well, let's ask, Harry, is that the kind of person who wouldn't get benefits then? Does that class as a low-level anxiety?
As I said, anxiety is something that moves along a spectrum. There is no way we can sit here and say, this one example is one person, OK, I'm going to put them on this side or that side. That's not possible.
She had to get a doctor to support her application in the rest
of
the
I'm just saying, it's just these are policies that the Conservatives come out with. At some point, it's going to come down to individual decisions.
Well,
it absolutely is. But
I mean, this
I'm
is
not
from Reform, right? This policy.
Well, I'll ask. No,
I mean,
simply because I was talking to Harriet about it.
But the Reform is actually gets so much of its funding from billionaires. Why isn't it looking more at taxing the rich more? We've got to ask those questions.
Okay, all right. But let's also stick to the question, which is cutting benefits for people with mild anxiety disorders.
The first thing to say, just as an aside about Reform, is it's now the largest grassroots membership political party in British politics, with something like 250,000 normal people who desperately want change. And we talk about a group in society called the alarm clock class, who, when they're finished watching this show, they're going to go to bed and they're going to set an alarm because they've got to get up and they've got to work in the morning. And how is it fair that those people, strivers, workers, taxpayers, go Monday to Friday, maybe even at the weekends too, working solidly, generating jobs, driving our economy, while millions of people, often with very mild conditions, are on welfare to the tune of billions of pounds every year, and it's the hard workers who are having to pay for that. And then I hear about, well, we want to get people back to work. At the same time, those people are being undermined. I'll say it again, they're being undermined by mass uncontrolled immigration. They're getting hit on two sides. They're getting hit on two sides. It's true. And the funny thing is, the difference between the left and the right, the left think compassion is giving welfare to as many people as possible. The right think compassion is ensuring that as many people as possible don't have to rely on welfare. They've got meaning, dignity, purpose. That's the difference. What we have in this country is unsustainable. Millions of people on out-of-work benefits. You're paying for it. Okay. It's coming out of the money that you're creating. They should be in the economy, having meaning, purpose and dignity in their lives.
Woman here with the glasses at the front.
As someone who's applied for PIP and knows how traumatic it can be to go through it, I can guarantee you that nobody is applying just for the money. They're applying because they need it and because they have a problem. Like, I have worked before. I'm struggling at the moment to find a job anyway, but it makes it worse being anxious. And I think people need to have a bit more compassion. That it's so traumatic going through all this assessment, and you wouldn't do it unless you actually had a need.
So what would you say to someone like this woman here, Matt?
Well, obviously, I don't know your individual life story, and I wouldn't presume to know what you've experienced in your life. But when I see people with very mild mental health conditions taking £3.5 billion off the white van man who's getting up tomorrow morning and he's slogging it for 8 hours, I don't think that's fair. That society is broken. It's not working.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying you're faced with someone here
and the Labour
who's got... Hang on, Matt. You're faced with someone here... Wait a minute. You're faced with someone here... If I heard you correctly, you talked about anxiety. Yeah. Anxiety is one of the things Anti Reform want to say, listen, we're not going to be paying for that, so you wouldn't be paying for her.
Well, again,
Reform would not be paying for you. You're not...
My personal view is people who are experiencing mild mental health conditions should be in work or education or training and getting meaning, dignity and purpose in their lives.
Man in the suit and tie there, yes.
Yeah, I think it's short-termism. I think you're coming at it from the complete wrong angle. I'm a senior leader in a secondary school not so far from here, and since the pandemic, I'm telling you categorically, there's more children struggling with their mental health, and we tried desperately to help them. We don't have the funding in the area that I worked in. We had one educational psychologist to support, and I'm talking, you know, hundreds of schools, really. We're not the expert in this. We're trying to help the students as much as we can. We'd like to see more investment in that. I think let's keep.
And do you think we can afford it as a country? Do you think we can afford it as a country?
We've got to make a choice, haven't we? Do we go from the pick a list who deserves benefits the least, or do we say let's invest in our children and let's support them to deal with these mental health issues before they become a
woman right at the back there, yes.
I just want to say, you know, talking to the lady, you know, who talks about PIP, that she's claiming PIP, absolutely agree. It's an absolutely horrific system. And let me tell you, the amount of information that you have to provide for those people is absolutely unbelievable. So anybody who thinks that people are cheating this system, I just cannot understand. I also, Matt, have worked for 40 years, right, and got cancer. So I think, actually, you know what? I've paid in, my friend. I've paid into the state, and I'm more than entitled to some support from this government and from PIP.
Lisa.
Well, you know, and thank you for that, because I think, actually, when you listen to this debate, when it comes down to sort of shouting and characterising particular groups of people in society, we thought this is why it's always attempts at reform to build a system that works have always failed. And when you start...
As they failed with Labour, of course, because you tried to bring in reforms and then you couldn't get through the backbenches and you're trying again.
No, what we did
Well, that is true.
No, what we did was we introduced a set of proposals and we heard very loud and clear, not just from members of Parliament, but also from people who are in the system or have been through the
But you
system.
couldn't get your backbenchers to agree, otherwise surely you'd have gone for it.
Look, sorry, I think politics would be far better if we could sometimes say, you know what, we think we got that wrong and we're going to think again and do it differently and listen to people. Just to answer the question, because to get away from this thing about, strivers and shirkers and all the stuff that we used to hear from George Osborne and we just heard from Matt, I think if you can work, of course you should. It's better for you. It enriches your life. With the Labour Party, we believe in dignified, well-paid, meaningful work. And because, frankly, we're in it together and we've all got to do our bit. If you can't work, you should always be protected, and there will always be people who can't work. And what sort of society do we become if we don't look after them?
But
we have to, we should, and we must.
Do you want to cut the welfare bill?
Let me say this.
Yes, you do want to cut the welfare bill?
Yes, we want to cut the welfare bill. But the question is, as that lady said, how you do it. And actually, and the gentleman there, how you do it is you look at this group who are not the people who can work and are in work and are getting on with it. They're not the people who can never work and need to be protected. There's a group in the middle, which includes a lot of people with anxiety disorders and other mental health challenges. I met one just down the road from here earlier today. I met a volunteer who has had a series of health challenges and mental health challenges, who has been able to get involved in volunteering through the UK City of Culture here in Bradford. And he is brilliant. And because he's been able to get involved and make the contribution that Harriet talked about that is so meaningful, he's thinking about routes to get into paid work. Now, it's our job as a government then to support him. So one of the things that we've introduced with these reforms that we're making is a glide path back into work, because the benefit system is complex, it's difficult, and if you come out of it, it's really difficult to get back in. So what we've said is, if you try out work for a little bit, you can stay in the benefit system. You don't have to go around it all again. So if it doesn't work out, you're protected. What that means is people can try without the fear that their lives are going to fall apart if it doesn't work. I just think we need a much more sensible, nuanced and human debate about how you solve what is a really challenging problem.
I'm stopping the recording because you have a breaking story which we should respond to. That's why I stopped you, Matt, so forgive me. So, Prince Andrew. The King has initiated a process, so we're going to discuss this. Prince Andrew will no longer be Prince Andrew. He will be Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He will surrender the lease to his home and he will find alternative private accommodation. Lisa, your response?
Well, I mean, obviously, this is a huge development and a big step for the King to take. I have to say, just, as an initial response, I really support the step that he's taken. I think it sends a very powerful message to the victims of grooming and sex offences. I used to work with children who'd been abused before I came into Parliament, including many of the girls who'd been horrifically abused by grooming gangs. I read some of the testimony from some of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, not just at the time, but recently with news stories that have come to light. And I think, given the new information that we have, I think this is a really brave, important and right step by the King, and I fully support it.
Harriet?
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly a decision taken by the King, and he will have put a lot of thought in this, and I respect him a lot, actually, for coming to this decision, because family breakdowns of any type, no matter who you are really difficult, no matter what the circumstances are behind it. But to effectively do that in public takes a huge amount of gut to do. And I think for him to come to this decision is clearly right for him, right for the royal family. But I think also will be seen around the country as something which I think the country will probably support. And there's been a huge amount of concern, a huge amount of anger about the stories that have been coming out and the ones since. A huge amount of concern about what this says about the victims of any sort of abuse. So to hear this is good news, and we'll see how it progresses over the next few days, obviously. But it is unprecedented, certainly unprecedented, and it's certainly a step which I think a lot of people will have welcomed this evening.
And I should remind everyone, of course, that Prince Andrew has always protested his innocence and denied the allegations.
Andrew.
Of course, Andrew, forgive me, force of habit, that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has always denied the allegations against it. And the King has said these censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he, Andrew, continues to deny the allegations against him. Let's hear a bit from our audience. Yes, the man there in the blue shirt. Yes.
While I and many of the public here that's with me today will look at this decision as a positive one, I believe that this decision itself should have been made in 2019. And the King himself is responding to the feeling and the sentiment, I think, that's right throughout the country. It's kind of like, you know, trying to chase the fish while you're swimming in the water. But I do acknowledge it's a positive step forward.
But do you feel the King's kind of been dragged to it then? Is that what you're saying?
I think he's been pulled into a decision that should have been made a long time ago. I mean, once you identify that somebody's an offender...
Well, as I say, he's not been proved an offender.
No, I'm not talking about Mountbatten now. I'm talking about Mr. Epstein himself.
Yes,
Once you identify that that gentleman is an offender, you cut all ties. And that should have been the simple decision.
Okay.
And his brother should have been saying, you need to leave this man alone.
Man there in the dark shirt.
Oh, just to kind of follow on with that, why has it taken so long for this to happen? I mean, as you said, this happened in 2019. The allegations were there. They should have taken a decisive action then. And I feel that part of this is just out of respect for the late Queen, because we know Andrew was her favourite child, and it's taken so long. I mean, I think they're a bit too hung up on tradition, and they should have just done it there and then, and we wouldn't be talking about it today.
Matt?
The key question is, why has it taken so long? And around the world, men who have preyed and abused women, there's a reckoning that is now coming, which raises another question. Why has it taken the Labour government so long to give us a national inquiry into the truth of the rape gang scandal, the mass abuse of white working class girls by Pakistani Muslim men?
Hang on a minute, Matt. We are talking about the decision by the King to strip Andrew of his
title. We're speaking in Bradford. We're speaking in Bradford. Bradford refused to hold a local inquiry into the rape gangs. Bradford refused to hold an inquiry into rape gangs. Lisa, when are we getting the national inquiry into the rape gangs?
We're working with victims.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
This breaking news is a distraction. It'll be on the front of the papers for the next few weeks. We have important matters.
Okay, well, would you
Keir
like Lisa
Starmer,
to answer that
face
then?
the public,
Yeah, well,
please.
let her answer.
No, you're fine. But I mean, he's asked me about the thing that you want to talk about, and so I'm very keen to talk about it as well. We're working with victims to make sure that we establish that inquiry with a scope and a remit that will actually deliver justice. Having worked with children who've been abused for a long time before I came into Parliament, and having stood up for girls who've been groomed, and I have to say this to you, Matt, right? These girls who were groomed over a long period of time in many parts of the country, they weren't believed for three reasons. They weren't believed because they were young, they weren't believed because they were female, and they weren't believed because they were working class. And I can tell you, having worked with young working class girls from both white and Pakistani backgrounds who were the victims of those grooming gangs, you do us no favours when you try to make this just a party political
Lisa, no, there's a...
Matt. in fairness, you've made your point. No, Matt, you've made your
There's
point.
a fourth reason they weren't listened to, because anyone
there are
who
people
raises
here.
questions
No, Matt,
is called far right.
Matt, there are people here who want to talk about the issue that we've raised, and I'm determined to let them. So let's hear from someone. Yes. Two men at the back. You're sitting next to each other, and you both got glasses, and you both got blue shirts. I'm not quite sure what to do about that. One of you start.
The only reason he keeps going on about the Pakistanis and all that, all these rape victims and whatever they are, obviously it's taken them that long. It's taken him that long to the king to do what he did. He's part of the royal family. If that had been anyone else, it should have been dealt with years ago. That's all I'm saying. But all he keeps going on about is the Pakistanis. He keeps time and time again. That's all he's on about. It should have been dealt with years ago. That's all I say. It's because of the royal family.
All right, and the man next to you.
My thought is, does this open up a debate for whether the royal family is useful anymore?
Well, that's a whole discussion, isn't it? And there's a woman right at the back with her hand up with glasses. Yes.
Yeah, can I ask, if we're so concerned about the welfare of women, why we're not investigating increase in femicide, increase in domestic violence, increase in assault and sexual harassment, and why misogyny is still not a hate crime in this country?
OK. Pfizer, by all means, feel free to answer that, but will you also address the point, your response to what has happened in terms of the royal family?
Yeah, I mean, one word, finally, right? I mean, it has taken a really long time, and I think it's a sign that some people seem to sit above, you know, the law. And I would say, you know, the main victim here, the main person who brought this to light for us, took her own life. And I just was sitting here thinking of her and these victims and the pressure. All victims of sexual assault and sexual offences. And I do want to take a moment to say that every person, regardless of race, of religion, class, what family they're part of, needs to be held to account. And I'm glad to finally see this here. But I don't give the king many points. I'm sorry, but I think this should have happened a long time ago. And I do think it's because of us, the public, that it's finally happening.
So can I just ask, because the sense that I'm getting, and obviously I don't know what you all think, I just know what the people who put their hands up think. But so far the sense I'm getting is why did it take so long? Is there anyone here who thinks, good on him, we took the right decision at the right time, or you're sticking your hand up. I don't know what you think.
The reason it's took so long is because she was, Andrew was the Queen's favourite, and she didn't want things to happen in her lifetime. She knew she was elderly. She knew that she wasn't going to be here forever. So I think it was swept under the carpet until King Charles came in.
And do you think he deserves credit for what he's done today?
So should he?
Do you think King Charles deserves credit for the decision he's taken?
I think he does. Yes. And I think as long as Andrew isn't the Duke of York either, because he needed to be ousted from that. But yeah, I think
he's not that he lost that title already.
I know, and that was the great thing. But I do think that Charles should be given a bit of credit because he's had to go by what was the old rules of the monarchy, and he's trying to change it and modernise it, and I think he's done well.
All right. Man with the glasses and the dark sweater, yeah.
Just to Matt, I think it's quite poor that today you've used immigrants as a scapegoat for every single issue that we've discussed. I don't think it's a very good look for reform, especially considering the racist stereotypes around them. That you're pushing immigrants to the forefront of every single issue that is very real to all of us.
I used to work a lot in polling. You look at the polls at the moment. The number one issue for the British people in this country, it might not always be reflected in the debates that we have. The number one issue in this country is immigration. People out there are really concerned about what's happening to their country. And so many people said to me, coming into this, they said, Matt, can you just please put this issue onto the agenda? Because Westminster, notice here, desperate not to talk about it. Don't want to talk about what's happening to our country, what's happening to good, law-abiding, hard-working people. We need to end mass uncontrolled immigration, control the borders, and put British people where they belong, which is first.
Woman here in the blue top.
So much for polls. The poll that counts is the election. The polls that counts are the by-elections that have just taken place, and 6 more today. The number of by-elections that Reform won out of the last 13 was 1. And they were soundly beaten by Plaid in
Plaid Cymru.
Caerphilly who basically won because people lent their votes to anybody but Reform.
Well, about 35% of people are currently voting, planning to vote for Reform.
Don't speak over yours.
As I can just say, there's no marks for second place, and one of your MPs got elected by 6 points. 6 points. So the person who came second should say, well, I should have a place too.
Yes, the woman at the back there.
Do you not believe that the reason why...
Oh, God, is this another question for Matt?
Yeah, sorry.
Right, OK.
I just feel so proud to be in this room and to hear so many people really, like, fight back this hateful energy.
OK, but can I just point out... Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Matt, wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. Can I just point out there have also been people here who have supported what Matt has to say, and we've heard from them too. I'm really sorry. I've just been told we've run out of time, so I'm not even able to hear your question, so forgive me for that. Whew. As I say, we have run out of time. Thank you very much to the panel. Thank you very much to the audience for coming along and putting your point so powerfully and all sorts of different points of view, which is what we want to hear on this programme. Thank you, of course, to you at home also for watching. From Bradford, goodbye.